Have you ever just felt really stuck in your life and you really just needed or wanted some forward momentum? Or maybe you've been like I have been at various times where you feel so stuck that you feel like you're under the barrel. And you know there's things that you should do, but for some reason you just can't bring yourself to do them. Well, the good news is we really are not victims of our circumstance or our culture or even our lot in life. And there are things that we can do today that will help us have a sense of forward momentum and a sense of freedom and to get unstuck. So we're going to take a look at what happens when we're stuck in the mud, and then I'm going to give you some practical tools that you can begin to use today. So if this sounds intriguing and it resonates with you, please click the like and subscribe and the notification bell, and we're going to get right into how to get unstuck through brainwave changes. The word stuck kind of lends itself to the very fact that we just want something different in our life and for our future. We're tired of the same old, same old. Well, something I learned real recently, and it's something that I knew on an instinctual level, but I had never heard it put like this, and it was through Eckhart Tolle. And he said, and I've heard Neville Goddard say something to the same effect, that our future only exists in our thoughts. And somehow for me, I kind of felt like, well, my future was out there and I was just walking down this path and I was going to run into my future. But in reality, our future only exists in our thoughts. And so on the last video that I did about incessant thinking, we talked about how 70,000 thoughts a day are what we think. And then some 90% of those are on repeat. It's the same old stories. We tell them the same old way, and we just tell them over and over and over again. And then 60% of those thoughts, of those 70,000 thoughts, they've found that are really self-limiting or, even defeating. And so here we are thinking 70,000 thoughts, and 60% of them make us feel like crap. And so when we're thinking those bad thoughts, it's usually about reminiscing about the past or trying to forecast something in the future. And through studying, like in courtrooms, people when they are witnesses, and also just through brain science, they found that 54% of our memories are embellished or exaggerated, meaning we can recall the emotion, but then we start adding extra details to it. It's kind of like the fish story. You know how when you catch the fish, it's this big, and then some 20 or 30 years later, it's like the size of a shark or a whale or something. And so a lot of times when we're recalling things in our past, we're thinking, oh, I should have done that, or oh, why didn't I do that? Or if we're worrying about things in the future, thinking about things in the future, and it's a self-limiting belief, we're trying to forecast, like, what if I do this? What'll happen? And I should do that because this will happen. And so either one of those type of thoughts we know are in the beta brainwave state, and that is when we are in fight, flight, or freeze mode. We're in survival mode, which is good when we need it. But the problem is that is very corrosive to our system because we dump adrenaline and cortisol throughout the body. And even highly successful people can get caught in this 60% self-limiting thoughts. And the reason being is if you are continually driving yourself to the future and you're trying to work out all the bugs and you're trying to make these things happen, you still are in survival mode. And a good cue is if you just are thinking, well, I just need to sit down and think things out, or I'm trying to work out all the bugs, or I just need to plan. All of those types of behaviors are also beta brainwaves. And if you don't believe me, just look at some highly successful people in Hollywood. They have all the money that you can buy. They have celebrity, they have fame, they have fortune, yet they can't be happy. And some of them end up committing suicide because stress is when you're here in the present moment, but you're thinking about and wanting to be there, or when you're here in the present moment and you're worrying about there, or you're here in the present moment and you can't even enjoy it because the minute you get to there, you've already moved on to the next thing that you're trying to accomplish. when we are either driving ourselves into the dirt about our future, or we're thinking about shoulda, coulda, woulda in our past, like I should have done this and I should have done that, we just should all over ourselves, we are missing out on the generous present moment. And I love that terminology, the generous present moment, because that word generous means abundant or plentiful. And so we're never in the present moment when we are thinking those self-limiting thoughts, because they turn us inward. And so beta brainwaves are a very high frequency, but they are very low in amplitude. Their amps are very low. They're not ample. They're not roomy. They're not the generous present moment like alpha brainwaves. And a great example of someone who is a master at alpha brainwaves would be Alex Honnold. And I'm not sure if you know who he is, but his documentary, or the documentary about his life, is amazing. And he's this guy that does free climbs. So he climbs sheer cliff faces, granite cliff faces, with no ropes. And you talk about being in the generous present moment, you would have to be so focused on the generous present moment, you would know where every hand placement is going to be. You'll know where every foot placement is going to be. Otherwise, the results would be tragic. Now, that is an extreme example of the generous present moment, but alpha brainwaves are when your brain is a little more relaxed and you are truly in the present moment. So I want to make two references to some scientific information. And in 1927, quantum physics said the mind is the matrix of all matter. And that word matrix just means a shape or a mold or a structure. So it said the mind, or our thoughts, is the form or the mold of all matter. So what that means, if we want to put it in different terms, is our mind is the form and the matrix that takes our energy of our thoughts, and it is used to manifest matter in our life. So if we're thinking beta brainwaves, it's all internal, and we don't have a lot of amplitude or a lot of energy emanating outward to create matter in our life. And the second one is an article that just came out in the Journal of Nature, which the Journal of Nature, I guess, is the who's and the bee's knees of scientific articles. And it was an article put out by a quantum physicist, and it was called The Mental Universe. And it says that the universe is immaterial, it's mental and spiritual, live and enjoy. It's like, what? That's what science is saying. The universe, which is 10 billion light years in diameter, is immaterial, meaning it is energy, it is mental and spiritual, live and enjoy. It's in our thoughts, and our thoughts create things that are of matter, so you need to live and enjoy. We can say then our life and our future exists in our thoughts, and that is what is forming the matrix, the mold, the shape of our life. So we need to figure out how to break out of that. And Bruce Lipton is the first one I heard talk about how that the Matrix movie is more of a documentary than a movie, and I just went and watched the new one. Highly recommend it. But if we truly are programmed, and we watch programs, and we're like a computer and we download programs, we just need to understand how that happens. And so from the last trimester in our mother's belly all the way until age 7, we are downloading programs from our family of origin. And some of us are like, uh-oh, not such great news. But there are great programs that we download. We just need to rewire the programs that are not so great. So ones that are good are like, we don't have to learn to walk every time we want to walk across the room, or we can ride a bike or go skiing, or if you're driving in a car with someone and you're engrossed in a conversation, and you get to your destination, but you can't remember how you got there. You weren't consciously watching the road. That is the programs that we download that are meant to help us stay safe. And so that is more on a subconscious level. And so we have a subconscious mind and a conscious mind. And our subconscious mind is where the programs are loaded. The problem is we don't know and we're not aware a lot of times of those bad programs. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're doing something in the kitchen and someone comes in and is like, Mom, 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 Mom. And you're like, what? Or Dad, 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 Dad. And you're like, stop it. And you didn't even realize or weren't even aware on a conscious level that you were going to snap. That is an example of some old programming that, is playing in the background that we're not even aware of. We're on autopilot. And, when we become so habituated that nothing new happens, we have the same thing every day, we're going to get the same results, and we lull our soul to sleep. And it really does give us a false sense of security, and we just end up doing the same darn things, and we're just bored to death, and we end up feeling stuck. And so the conscious mind is where, when you hear people, I've been awakened, or I'm awake, or I have great awareness, that is someone who's living in the generous present moment, and they're aware of divine appointments and synchronicities. And so all of these programs are hardwired in our central nervous system. And our central nervous system is our brain and our spinal cord, and then the nervous tissues that control the activity throughout the body. So we're continually receiving signals. Like, if it's hot, we instinctively know to take off clothing. If it's cold, we instinctively know to get warm. If we've ever touched a hot pan on the stove, we know not to touch that again. The problem is a lot of times our perceptions about things that we downloaded in our first 7 years are faulty. And so we need to break out of some old thought patterns and the matrix and the form and the 60% of those self-limiting thoughts that we think on a repetitive daily process. Let's take a look at it from an ancient teaching or spiritual viewpoint for just a minute. And so there's a scripture in Proverbs that says, don't be wise in your own eyes, stand in awe and listen for God's voice in everything that you do and everywhere that you go, and the Almighty will keep track of you, and your body will glow with health, and your bones will vibrate with wholeness. And so what it's saying is, don't try to figure it out in your cunning, crafty mind, in your beta brainwaves. You can't get there from there, because remember, we said that beta is very high frequency, but it's low amplitude. And so when we try to figure things out in our past and in our future, that stops us from being able to access, I would say, heavenly realms, or if you're more comfortable with higher dimensions, like everybody's talking about the fifth dimension, we can't get there from there. And then it says, stand in awe. And that reminds me of what I talked about in the incessant thoughts video, how, Albert Einstein said he would get out in nature and wonderment, and he would just be in awe, and he would just be lost in the moment, and then he would get download of the solution to the problem that he was pondering. And then it says, listen for God's voice in everything that you do and everywhere that you go. And, I would really try to do that, but sometimes I would hit the mark, and then other times I wouldn't, and I couldn't get there because I was in such fight, flight, or freeze mode. I was in survival mode. It would almost have to be skywriting or a bolt of lightning for me to get the message, because I was so frenetic and low amplitude in my thoughts. But when we change our brain wave states, then our our body will glow with health, and our bones will vibrate with wholeness. Now, who doesn't want that? And so the next one I want to talk about is Psalms 32:8 that says, I will sing over you in the night season, and I will place my loving kindness over you in the daytime. And so, this is something that really has been revealed to me as of recently. Loving kindness, we can download software programs through our 8th chakra, or we're crowned with loving kindness, but we have to change our state in order to get there. And so if you go in meditation, or you're trying to solve a problem and you are all stressed out and you are worried about the future and you're reminiscing about the embellished past, it's very difficult to get there. But the thing that's so cool, and the question that has been answered for me, is I will sing over you in the night season. I will vibrate over you in the night season. And I used to say this, and I still say it, but with a little bit different intent now. When I go to sleep, I would say, okay, God, I know you're going to sing over me in the night season. Well, what does that mean? Well, we're in Delta brainwaves in the night. So of course we're going to have communion with higher dimensions or interdimensional beings, or what I would classify as angels. God has given his angels charge over you. And when we sleep at night, we change our brainwave states. That's why I would highly recommend that before you go to bed, just make sure you're thinking on things that are pleasant and not things that are stressful and worrisome. And then the last one I want to talk about is Psalms 32:8, and it says, God will guide you along the pathway that's best for your life, and the Almighty will advise and watch over you. And if we think about it, when we are trying to access information like Thomas Edison did, or, Nikola Tesla or Albert Einstein, they all talked about, the information was presented to them. And so the only way that we can access that and hear that type of information and become acquainted with that type of information is inner sight, or insight, inner sight. And the way that we are able to get that is if we change our brainwave states to one that is out of beta. As I've been on this journey of awakening and expanding my awareness, I mentioned to you in my previous videos how Eckhart Tolle talked about, thought forms bubble up. And if there's something in us that resonates with these lower thought forms, they will attach themselves to us and draw other thought forms of a similar level to us. And so I was contemplating that, and I had this mystical experience where I was told that I was being beta tested. And I was like, what does that mean? And a beta test is a program or something technical that they are testing, and they're letting people use it until it is released for a wider audience. And so what was happening to me is I was being beta tested, or I was drawing all these beta thoughts to me. And the more I would think beta thoughts, the more beta thoughts I would draw to myself. And so I have been just day after day for almost the last 3 years trying to knock myself out of beta, because remember, we said our thoughts are the energy that provide the form or the structure for our future. And we all know that trauma is stored in the body. That's why, if we've ever touched a hot stove, we won't touch a hot stove again. Or if we love chocolate brownies, we start to salivate like a dog does over chocolate brownies. And so we become habituated. And so being unhabituated is really a shortcut to rewiring your central nervous system. And so if you think about it, like when you go to bed every day and get up at the same time on the weekend, when you can sleep in, your body won't let you. It's like, knock, 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 wake up. So there are some things that I do that have gone a long way to helping me be unhabituated. For example, I got these ideas from some of them from Dr. JoeDispenza's work. Like, I brush my teeth with my other hand. I try to tie my other shoe first. If I well, there was a time where I felt like I needed X amount of hours of sleep. And I knew that was an old program. That's not true. I didn't need as much or as little sleep as I was thinking. So I just was like, you know what? Like, I am desperate to unwire my hardwired program. So I would get up earlier, or I would sleep in later, or I would go to bed later, or I would go to bed earlier, just to kind of shake up the system. Another thing is, if I didn't want to exercise at a certain time, like I like to exercise in the afternoon, so I forced myself to start exercising early in the morning because I didn't want to be controlled by those programs. And a biggie for me was when I started to do the Wim Hof breath and I couldn't take cold showers. I'm like, I just can't do that. I hate to be cold. So I would get in the shower and I would turn it on for like 10 seconds. I'd be like, oh, I can't do that. But I would try to put my shoulder in there and I could not put my shoulder in there. So I was just contemplating and thinking about it. And it was shown to me that I was manipulated as a young child by being given the cold shoulder, and I would clamor after people who gave me a cold shoulder. And so once I learned that, I'm like, you know what? I don't need to be controlled by the fear of getting the cold shoulder. So I just stick my cold shoulder in there. And so another one would be, if you come home every day and you put those same ugly, comfy sweats on, stop it. Do some things different than you normally do, and do them with intention. I know that is an overplayed word, but some examples that I use in my own life is like when I put lotion on, I make my own oils. I'm like, okay, I am anointing myself with gladness. And I don't just slap it on there and not pay attention to what I'm doing. I try to be in the present moment when I'm doing it. And so when I am putting glitter on, lost my train of thought for a minute. I started putting glitter on as a symbolism or a symbolic gesture that God had given his angels, or has given his angels, charge over me. So when I put this food grade glitter on, I just am like, God, you have given your angels charge over me, and I abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And then when I see it during the day, when I look and it's on my shirt, or I got it on my husband's shirt, or it's on his face, I'm like, God has given his angels charge over me. Or, I did a lot of things like, I'm going to save those earrings for a special occasion, or I'm not going to wear that sweater until this event. And I stopped doing that because I want to live in the generous present moment. And so when I wear those earrings, I'm like, I'm doing it because I am crowned with loving kindness. So I would say begin to be intentional about some things, about unhabituating yourself. And then, the roominess of the generous present moment and the delta and the gamma and the theta brainwaves, they have more amps that we send out in our field, so to speak. And so we have to learn to develop quietude, because beta brainwaves are very frenetic and they're going very fast. The other brainwaves, you actually slow your brainwaves down, you slow the thinking down. So we have to learn to develop quietude. And I've done that a lot through the breath work. And one of the ones that has helped me tremendously is the Tumor Breath, and I'll put the video down below, because what it teaches you to do is focus that energy right below your belly button, and you contract and you pull all of your energy, your attention, your thought, your focus to that area. And then when you let go of it, it goes up into your brain. And these dimensional beings, which I call angels, were explaining to me that we really are just a set of tubes. We're a channel, so to speak. If you think about it, your eye is a tube, your nose are tubes, your ears are tubes, your throat is tubes, your esophagus is a tube, your stomach is a tube, your reproductive organs are a tube. We are tubular. And so we need to begin to understand what it feels like to have energy stuck and energy flowing through us. And so as I've been doing this Tumor Breath for almost 3 years, I can literally feel where I get a kink in my tubing, and I can use that breath as well as yoga poses and really like focus in and then let go of it, and that energy will figure out a way around it or through it. It really is quite amazing. And so if you don't want to do breath work, then I would highly recommend that you begin to do some inversion poses, like downward facing dog, and I get on my big blue ball and I do some back bends, and I get on my yoga wheel and I do it with intention. I go backwards and I believe that I am getting good blood to my brain, and I'm always saying, like, I surrender my heart to you, God, and I want less of the old me and more of you. I do it with intention, and I bring my breath to those areas where I can feel there's constriction, because you cannot be in growth when you are in an inner beta contracted state. So in order to have growth, we must expand and make room and have ample room for the amplitude and the energy of higher vibrational thoughts. And so I think I mentioned also at the stop, drop, and roll, and I was, having this experience, and they told me stop, drop, and roll, and it made me laugh, because I'm like, that's what they used to tell me in grade school, or tell us when if we ever caught on fire: stop, drop to the ground, and roll. And literally I was on fire in a way that my frenetic, high vibration or high voltage thoughts, because I was in survival mode. And so for me, stop, drop, and roll, what I do, like, I'll set an alarm, but when I know that when I can feel that I am getting in, some bad thought patterns, I just have a plan. Like, I have an escape hatch, and I'll tell you what some of mine are. If I'm really having a moment, I get on YouTube or TikTok and I watch funny pet videos, and I send them to this one friend of mine, Leslie, and we laugh about them. Or Dr. David Hawkins said that a dog's tail wag is on a vibration of 500, which is love on the scale of consciousness. So I'll get down on the ground with my chihuahuas and I'll baby talk to them, and I'll kiss them back and forth, and their little tails will wag, and I know it's changing my state. And I know that if I get out in nature, that's why I get out early in the morning when no one is there around. I listen for the crickets, and I notice which trees are blowing in the wind, because the earth, the Schumann resonance, said it vibrates on a level of 700. Dancing, you cannot be in stress and worry if you are lost in the moment, getting your groove on. That's why I make videos about dancing, and that's why I put the nitric oxide workouts to music. And then I would say art. I have a friend that has been doing some artwork, and how I have interacted with her before she was really doing her artwork, and how we have interacted since she has been doing, a lot of artsy, craftsy things, has been amazing. That has really caused a shift in her personality. And the next one I would say is the chi, shake it off. And you would think that chi meant energy, but what I really mean is I do a lot of contemplating about things in the present moment, so my mind isn't going to the past, or I'm not worrying about the future. And those of you who know me know I love my two little chihuahuas, Tank and Otto. And so I'll just watch them, because they look at me like, oh, you're such a VIP. We love you so much. And so if I ever have an occasion to get onto them, they will shake it off. And so I was just contemplating that, like if I'll say, Otto, you don't do that, or whatever it is, stop licking, he'll immediately shake it off. And so the insight that I got is, if you are stuck in a holding pattern of thoughts, just shake it off. Just do something that's a little bit weird in the moment, and nobody has to know what you're doing. And that will kind of jolt your central nervous system out of the habituated stress mode thoughts that you might be having. we're very similar then to a tuning fork or a piano key or even a string on an instrument. When we get plucked or hit or struck, then we resonate on that level. So like when you hit a tuning fork, that's the only way to activate it and for it to begin to resonate to whatever tune or hertz that it is set at. And so, you know, if you're trying to make changes in your central nervous system, you really do have to tamp down on the body. And I say that a lot, but I really didn't know what the word meant, so I looked it up. Tamp down means to pack down tightly with a succession of blows. And that's why, you know, I've told you all of these little tricks to become unhabituated. But really, to kickstart the body, the best way to do that is a compacted eating hour window. Some people call that intermittent fasting. And I was in the grocery store a few days ago, and I ended up having a conversation with a man who looked to be in his 70s and his son. And we were talking about intermittent fasting, and he had gotten off all of his blood pressure medicine, and his sister is doing it too, and she lost over 100 pounds just doing a compacted eating hour window. Because you know, and I know, when we do all this overeating from Thanksgiving to Christmas, you just are so unmotivated and so sleepy. That's why they say the spirit is willing and the flesh is weak, because when we're overindulging, the body's like, nah, it's too cold. Nah, I'm too tired. It'll give you 100 excuses to stay in the same old habits. And that's why intermittent fasting is so beneficial from a physiological level. What they found is that it stimulates human growth hormone, which gives you a more youthful body. It controls insulin level, like that guy was telling me it happened in his life. It decreases inflammation tremendously. And it causes the genes for vitality and longevity to be turned on. It's a great measure or a way to control weight loss. And what's super great is it decreases your amount of white fat, and it increases your amount of blood fat. So from your neck down to your pubic bone are your vital organs, and they're vital and they give you vitality, and they need to be buffered and protected by brown fat, not white fat. So it increases the amount of brown fat that you have in your body, so you're not a piece of white marbled meat, a fatty piece of meat. And so it also has been shown to benefit the heart greatly and the brain. And the spiritual benefits are amazing. And I'm going to just kind of give you my version of what it says in Isaiah 58. It says, "Is this not the fast that I have chosen?" Meaning, God saying we should fast, or the Almighty or divine or source is saying that we should fast. And then it goes on to say, but you can't be doing your malicious finger pointing, which just means stop making judgments about everything in your past and everybody in your future and everybody along the way. Stop it. And then if you do that, the chains will be broken. And what are those chains? When ancient texts were written, they didn't understand about the central nervous system and the old programs. Those chains are the things that keep us tethered to the same thing that we've always done to give us the same thing that we've always gotten. And I'm hopefully going to do a video coming up on the matrix. I've been popping out of the matrix in some mystical experiences. And then it says the yokes will be untied and torn off of you. And that word yoke, what that symbolizes is us comparing ourselves to other people in our society. Well, they drive a nicer car than I do. I don't know why I can't have that, and they live in the neighborhood I want to live in, and I wish I was taller, and I don't like my curly hair, and I think she does too much on social media. The yoke of comparing gets torn off of us, because when you are living in the generous present moment, you can tune into synchronicities and divine appointments, and it causes you to understand that, as it says in Isaiah 58, that God will cause you, the Almighty will cause you to ride on the high places. And it says, if you will fast, then your light will break forth quickly. Your healing will break forth quickly. And light denotes enlightenment. It will happen to you quickly because your flesh is not so burdened down with all the crap that you're stuffing in your pie hole. I know, because I used marathon running and then overeating. You can eat as much as you want when you run marathons, as a way of escape some things in my life. And then it says God will guide you. He will satisfy you. He will renew your youth, and you will be healed, and you will ride on the high places, because when you tamp down on the body, yes, it's going to yell at you, but what it does is it goes a long way in rewiring the habituated programs in our central nervous system. So we can boil it down to our future is dictated, created by the energy of our thoughts. And when we're thinking low amplitude, high frenetic thoughts, we don't have enough energy going in a forward motion to create the kind of life that we want to live. And I know wherein I speak. I literally have spent the last 3 years going to battle with myself, to break myself out of the fight, flight, or freeze mode that I was in from the trauma when I was a little, and I didn't even realize these programs, these self-limiting programs, were playing in the background. So it's been so valuable for me to use the things that I am telling you about today to become unhabituated. And you can download information of what it would take for you, but start thinking about the same things that you do day after day, because if you continue to do it that way, you're going to get the same things in your future that you have right now that are causing you to feel stuck. The good news is we don't have to stay stuck. And we can reprogram and rewire our brain and our central nervous system. We have the potential to be riding on the high places, to have our body glowing with health. We just have to activate it, and we have to fight for it. And, Jim Rohn talks about if you don't make a plan for your life, you're going to fall into someone else's plan. And what they have in mind for you is not much. And that's why the stop, drop, and roll and the things that I have incorporated to hold me in the generous present moment have been so valuable, because it doesn't happen by chance. It is a skill that we can cultivate. And when you do, it changes everything in your life. It causes you to have the life of your dreams, and it causes you to have more fulfillment. It doesn't matter what is going on in our culture, what is going on in our environment. You have the roominess and the amplitude and the connection with Source, the divine, the Almighty, and it provides synchronicities, and it provides a very satisfying, fulfilling, and healthy life. It is a skill that we can cultivate. So I would really love to hear from you if you're going to try any of these, or even if you're already doing ones, or if there's some that I left out. I would love to know, because I am on the hunt. I'm like, the dog that is on the trail. I'm sniffing these things out because I want to continue to evolve. I want to continue to live in the generous present moment and to continue creating a life to love. So please reach out if you're going to try some of these. Put yes. And until next time, I'm praying and believing that you're going to be blessed.